안녕하세요.
Rain poured heavily over Seoul that night, draping the streets in a silver sheen. Yoon Hae-jin clutched the strap of her bag tightly against her body as she rushed toward the towering Kang Group building. It was her first day as a temporary employee, and delayed by the chaotic traffic, she feared making a bad first impression. High above the city, Kang Joon-ho, the heir and CEO of Kang Group, studied financial reports with a sharp, calculating expression. To him, every detail mattered. There was no room for error. His life revolved around strategies, negotiations, and an unyielding desire to prove to his father that he could lead on his own. Love? A useless distraction. By the time Hae-jin arrived, breathless and drenched, her supervisor merely pointed toward a cart filled with coffee trays and documents. Her first task? Serving the executives during an important meeting. Taking a deep breath, she carefully balanced the trays and stepped into the conference room. The moment her eyes met, Joon-ho's something inside her wavered. He was intimidating, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his gaze sharp and unreadable. But he was also undeniably captivating. Quickly, one of the directors said, barely acknowledging her. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up a cup, trying to place it in front of Joon-ho. But then, a single drop of coffee splashed onto the polished surface of the table. Silence. Her heart pounded. I'm terribly sorry, sir. She bowed immediately, her voice barely above a whisper. The entire room held its breath, waiting for the CEO's reaction. To everyone's surprise, Joon-ho calmly reached for a napkin, wiped the table, and said nothing. Continue. His voice was composed, devoid of reprimand. Hi. Jin's eyes flickered upward in confusion. Why hadn't he scolded her? No other employee would have been shown such leniency. And yet, for some reason, Joon-ho felt something strange in that moment, something he couldn't explain. When the meeting ended, Hae-jin remained behind, tidying the table. Suddenly, she sensed a presence beside her. Turning, she found Joon-ho standing there, watching her with an unreadable expression. Yoon Hae-jin, isn't it? His voice was firm but not harsh. She nodded, surprised that he knew her name. Be more careful next time, he spoke, then turned and walked away before she could respond. Hae-jin stood frozen, her heartbeat still erratic. Something told her that this man would change her life forever. Monday morning arrived with an air of anticipation. For Yoon Hae-jin, the coffee incident still lingered in her mind, and the thought of running into Kang Joon-ho again made her uneasy. But reality was simple. She was just a temporary employee, and he was the CEO of Kang Group. Opposite worlds. As she reviewed documents in the archive room, a quiet sigh escaped her lips. Little did she know that elsewhere in the company, Joon-ho also found his thoughts drifting toward her. The young woman had piqued his curiosity. It wasn't common for someone to distract him from his work, but Hae-jin, she seemed different. Later that afternoon, as she hurried through the hallways with a stack of folders in her arms, she turned a corner too quickly and collided with a solid chest. The folders flew into the air, scattering papers across the floor. A firm pair of hands caught her shoulders before she could fall. You again? The deep, familiar voice made her heart skip a beat. She looked up and found Kang Joon-ho staring down at her, one eyebrow slightly raised. Sorry, sir. She bowed quickly, her face burning. Joon-ho sighed and crouched down, helping her gather the scattered papers. Their fingers brushed briefly, sending an involuntary shiver down Hae-jin's spine. Do you always walk around without watching where you're going? He asked, handing her the neatly stacked documents. I was in a hurry. She took the papers, avoiding his intense gaze. For a moment, Joon-ho remained silent. Then, to both their surprise, he said, Come with me. Hae-jin blinked in confusion. Sir? I need a temporary assistant. Your supervisor says you're efficient. Shock made her momentarily forget to breathe. Working directly with the CEO? That was dangerous for her heart. That wasn't a request, Yoon Hae-jin. His tone carried a hint of amusement, something rare. Swallowing hard, she simply nodded. One thing was clear. Her life had just taken an unexpected turn. In the following days, Haijin found herself caught in an intense routine by Jun Ho's side. He demanded excellence, and she did her best to keep up. Small details began to stand out: the way he furrowed his brow while reading reports, how he masked his exhaustion even after endless meetings, and, most of all, how he occasionally observed her when he thought she wouldn't notice. One afternoon, he asked her to accompany him to an important presentation. Nervously, she organized the documents and waited in the elevator beside him. As the doors slid shut, a sudden jolt startled them. The elevator stopped. She held her breath. Were they trapped? Jun-ho pressed a button, trying to contact maintenance. As they waited, an uncomfortable silence filled the small space. Then, he broke the tension. "Are you afraid of enclosed spaces?" Haijin hesitated before answering. "Not exactly, but I'd rather not be trapped in one with my boss." He chuckled softly, catching her off guard. "So you have a sense of humor. Good to know." Her heartbeat quickened. Kang Jun-ho was smiling at her, and somehow, in that confined space, they felt less distant than ever. The elevator incident marked a turning point in the dynamic between Kang Jun-ho and Yoon Haijin. In the days that followed, he found himself observing her more closely, noticing details he had previously overlooked: the way she furrowed her brow in concentration, how she tapped her fingers on the desk when nervous. There was something about her that intrigued him, though he hated to admit it. That morning, Haijin stepped into Jun-ho's office with a stack of contracts for review. She still hadn't grown accustomed to his intimidating presence, but she did her best to maintain professionalism. "Sir, these are the reports from the Busan branch. I need your signature by the end of the day." He took the documents and studied her for a moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "You've been doing well, Yoon Haijin." She blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected compliment. "Thank you, sir. I'm just doing my job." He tilted his head slightly, as if considering something. "There's a charity event tonight, hosted by the company. I'd like you to be there." Haijin held her breath. A charity event? With Kang Jun-ho? That didn't seem like something a temporary employee should attend. Sir, I'm not sure I'm the right person for that kind of event." He placed his pen on the desk and laced his fingers together. "And why wouldn't you be? You work for me now. I want you there." There was no room for refusal in his voice. Swallowing hard, she nodded. "Yes, sir, I'll be there." As she left his office, her heart pounded. Something told her that tonight would change everything. The evening arrived too quickly. Haijin spent hours rummaging through her small wardrobe, searching for something appropriate for an elite gathering. She finally settled on a simple yet elegant black dress that suited her understated personality. Her hair, styled in a low bun, accentuated her delicate features. Arriving at the luxurious hotel where the event was being held, she felt the weight of the stairs on her. She had never been in a setting like this, surrounded by magnates and socialites who looked as if they had stepped out of fashion magazines. Scanning the room, she spotted Jun-ho near the stage, speaking with a group of investors. His impeccable suit and confident posture made him seem untouchable. But when their eyes met, he did something that took her breath away. He smiled. Not the formal, businesslike smile she had seen in meetings, but a small, genuine expression of recognition. "You came." His voice was low as she approached. "Yes, sir. How could I refuse?" She tried to keep her tone professional, despite her racing heart. Before he could reply, a feminine voice interrupted. "Jun-ho, darling." A tall woman, in a stunning red dress, wrapped her arm around his possessively. "And who is this?" Haijin felt a chill run down her spine. There was unmistakable suspicion in the woman's tone. Jun-ho subtly stepped back and responded evenly. "This is Yoon Haijin, my assistant." The woman looked her up and down with a scrutinizing gaze. "Assistant? Interesting." She smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "I hope you know your place." Before Haijin could react, Jun-ho intervened. "Haijin, come with me. Let's find a quieter place to talk." He led her onto a balcony overlooking the illuminated city. The silence between them was almost comfortable until he finally spoke. Don't let people like her intimidate you. Hyjin turned to him, surprised. I'm used to it. People like her and I come from different worlds. He watched her for a long moment before replying. Maybe we're not so different after all. His tone was enigmatic, and Hyjin felt something shift between them. What had once been a strictly professional relationship was turning into something far more dangerous.
Start again. You're my eternal